Ministry of Home Affairs permits examinations by universities and institutions. Final semester examination in universities and colleges to be held at the end of September 2020. UGC revises its guidelines. National Security Advisor Ajit Doval and the Chinese Minister of Foreign Affairs Wang Yi hold telephonic conversation on the recent developments. Both agree to ensure expeditious disengagement at LAC for full restoration of peace and tranquility. Former US National Security Advisor John Bolton says China's behavior at Ladakh worries the United States and every country in China's periphery. Speaks exclusively to DD India, says India and US will form the most important relationship in the 21st century. World Bank and Government of India sign a $750 million agreement for emergency response program for MSME. Finance Ministry says emergency response program will provide increased financial support to the MSMEs that have borne the impact of the COVID-19 crisis. A central team deputed by Union Health Ministry to visit Bengaluru today to review the COVID-19 situation in the state. Recovery rate from COVID-19 in India improves to nearly 61% with over 4,24,000 recoveries. Total COVID-19 tests crossed the 1 crore mark. Global tally of confirmed cases of COVID-19 nears 1 crore 15 lakh with over 5,36,000 fatalities. US remains the hardest hit with 29 lakh 31,000 cases and about 1,30,000 fatalities. Good morning. Welcome to English News. I am Anil Thomas. Now for the stories in detail. Ministry of Home Affairs has permitted the conduct of examinations by universities and institutions. The final term examinations are to be compulsorily conducted as per the UGC guidelines on examinations and academic calendar for the universities and as per the standard operating procedures approved by the Union Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. Ministry of Human Resource Development, Dr. Ramesh Pokhriyal Nishank in a tweet said that the UGC has revisited its earlier guidelines related to university examinations in view of the safety, career progression and placement of the students and their larger interest. After consulting with the Home Ministry and the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, it has been decided that intermediate semester students will be evaluated based on the internal assessments as per the earlier issued guidelines. Evaluation of the terminal semester students, which was to be done through examination in the month of July, will now their examinations will be conducted by the end of September 2020, following the guidelines laid down by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare in view of COVID-19. The special representatives of India and China on the boundary question, Ajit Doval, the National Security Advisor of India, and Wang Yi, the State Councillor and Minister of Foreign Affairs of China, had a telephonic conversation on the 5th of July. The two special representatives had a frank and in-depth exchange of views on the recent developments in the western sector of the India-China border areas. The two special representatives agreed that both sides should take guidance from the consensus of the leaders that maintenance of peace and tranquility in the India-China border areas was essential for the further development of our bilateral relations and that two sides should not allow differences to become disputes. Therefore, they agreed that it was necessary to ensure at the earliest complete disengagement of the troops along the LOC and de-escalation from India-China border areas for full restoration of peace and tranquility. In this regard, they further agree that both sides should complete the ongoing disengagement process along the LAC expeditiously. The two sides should also ensure that a phased and stepwise de-escalation in the India-China border areas is carried out. The two special representatives agreed that the diplomatic and military officials of the two sides should continue their discussions. This included, which was included on the framework of the working mechanism for consultation and coordination on India-China border affairs and the implementation and of the understanding reached in a timely manner to achieve the above outcomes. It is also agreed that the two special representatives will continue their conversations to ensure full and enduring restoration of peace and tranquility in the India-China border areas in accordance with the bilateral agreements and protocols. They reaffirmed that both sides should strictly respect and observe the line of actual control and should not take any unilateral action to alter the status quo and work together to avoid any incident in the future that could disturb peace and tranquility in border areas. Former National Security Advisor John Bolton has termed the bilateral relations between India and US as the most important for 21st century.
In geostrategic terms, the U.S.-India bilateral relationship is going to be one of the most important for the U.S. in the 21st century. I think China, from the U.S. perspective, is the existential threat potentially of the 21st century. It's not to say there aren't other threats and adversaries out there. There certainly are. But the other main player on the world scene for the rest of this century will be India. And the relationship, I hope, between the U.S. and India, two democracies with many common values and an increasingly shared heritage.
Further, John Bolton said that China's research on biological weapons is the most comprehensive in the world.
And I'm not saying I know what the exact cause of the disease was. That's part of what we need to find out. But any country that has or aspires to have biological weapons can look at the response of the whole world, which has been inadequate in almost every country, and conclude you don't need nuclear weapons to be a superpower if you've got biological weapons. And this is something China's research on biological weapons could be the most extensive in the world.
Adding on, John Bolton also criticized Pakistan on the issue of terrorism.
I honestly don't think it's ultimately in the long-term interest of Pakistan to have inspired these terrorists who commit crimes and the like in India and within their own country and elsewhere around the world. There's no question of good terrorists and bad terrorists. This is something that threatens all of us, and it threatens the legitimate, stable, secure, secular part of Pakistan as well.
In an exclusive interview to DD India, the U.S. military strategist Edward Luttwak praised Prime Minister Narendra Modi's border infrastructure development push. Let's listen in.
Mr. Modi is focused on infrastructure. I mean, I'm not a pro-Modi person. I'm not an anti-Modi person. But his focus on infrastructure is very real. India has allies. China does not have allies, only Cambodia, because the Cambodians are squeezed by the Vietnamese. And the other ally it has is Pakistan. Since we've had Pakistan as an ally, I can tell you that having an ally like Pakistan is borderline.
The U.S. military strategist also praised infrastructure work ramping up in Ladakh and other areas along the LAC and changing the balance of power.
The expansionist pressure, in general, is not a tactical thing. It has a tactical expression, in some specific place. And as we all know, one part of the story is that finally, India is providing infrastructure in those areas and quite changing the balance of power.
Well, you can watch this exclusive interview at 8 p.m. on DD India and 10 p.m. on DD News. Moving on, let's now take a look at the COVID-19 updates from across the country. Due to the collective and focused efforts for containment and management of COVID-19 by the centre along with the state and union territories, the number of recovered cases have risen to 4,24,000. As per the latest update, a total of 4,24,433 people have recovered in the country so far. In the past 24 hours, 15,350 people have recovered from COVID-19. With this, the recovery rate has also reached 60.85%. The Health and Family Welfare Ministry said that the total of 24,248 new cases have been reported in the country in the last 24 hours, taking the total number of cases to 6,97,413. According to the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, the total number of active coronavirus cases in the country is 2,53,287, and all are under active medical supervision. A central team deputed by the Union Health Ministry will visit Bengaluru today to review the COVID-19 situation in the state. The central team is part of the teams which are deployed to visit the 5 mega cities to review the public health measures being undertaken for COVID-19, which have been spreading rapidly in some metro cities. The central teams are being deputed to provide technical support and handhold the state health department to review the public health measures being undertaken for COVID-19. Bengaluru has witnessed a spur in the number of positive cases in the last few days. The state government has been taking all measures to contain the spread of the virus and also implemented a 33-hour total lockdown across the state, which was a huge success as citizens, unmindful of the hardship, adhered to the strict implementation. The central teams are expected to submit the daily reports of activities undertaken by the state health department to the centre. Delhi's COVID-19 tally on Monday breached the 1 lakh mark as the city recorded 1,379 fresh COVID-19 cases, while the death toll mounted to 3,115. Meanwhile, in a shocking incident, a 37-year-old journalist undergoing treatment for COVID-19 at the AIIMS Trauma Center died on Monday afternoon. The journalist worked for a Hindi daily and lived with his wife and 2 children in northeast Delhi's Bhajanpura. Following the incident, Union Health Minister Harshavardhan asked the AIIMS director to set up a panel to probe the matter. He tweeted saying, "Deeply shocked and saddened by the death of a young journalist, Tarun Sisodia. It is a most unfortunate incident. I have no words to express my grief. My condolences to his whole family, especially his wife and young children. May God give them the strength to bear this irreparable loss." A terrorist has been gunned down in an ongoing encounter between terrorists and security forces in Gusu area of South Kashmir's Pulwama. An army soldier and a cop are also injured. Both of them have been moved to a nearby hospital for treatment. According to the reports, a joint team of police and Army's 53 RR conducted a cordon search operation in Gusu. As the joint team encircled the suspected spot, the hiding militants fired upon them. The fire was retaliated by the joint team that triggered off an encounter. The World Bank and the central government has signed an agreement worth $750 million to boost the flow of finance to micro, small and medium enterprises, that's MSME, amid the COVID-19 crisis. Finance Ministry said in a statement that this agreement is for the MSME Emergency Response Program, which will provide increased financial support to the MSMEs that have borne the impact of the COVID-19 crisis in the past few months. World Bank said in a statement that the World Bank MSME's Emergency Response Program will address the immediate liquidity and credit needs of some 1.5 million viable MSMEs to help them withstand the impact of the current shock and protect millions of jobs. This is the first step among a broader set of reforms that are needed to propel the MSME sector over time. In an effort to improve the quality of roads, National Highways Authority of India or NHAI has decided to undertake performance assessments and ranking of the highways in the country. The assessment, audit and ranking of national highways is aimed at improving the quality of highways. This move will provide higher level of service to highway commuters. The assessment parameters are based on different international practices. While the criteria for assessment has been broadly categorized on the basis of highway efficiency, highway safety and user services, on the basis of assessment, the authority will decide on the level of intervention required to enhance the overall service quality. Important parameters like access control, time taken at toll plaza, accident rate, availability of advanced traffic management system, wayside amenities will also be considered during the assessment. The process of ranking will bring out operational efficiency and ensure higher quality maintenance of highways and roads. Moving on, the confirmed cases continue to spike worldwide, with the cumulative figures rising over 1 crore 15 lakhs and over 5 lakh 37,000 fatalities. The United States continues to remain the worst hit, with over 29 lakhs 34,000 cases and 1 lakh 30,000 deaths being reported. 1,30,248 deaths being reported, followed by Brazil, which has 16 lakhs 23,000 cases. United States is the hardest hit country by the pandemic, with 29 lakhs 34,000 cases and 1 lakh 30,248 deaths being reported. While Florida's greater Miami area has become the latest U.S. coronavirus hotspot to roll back its reopening, ordering all restaurants dining to be closed on Monday, restaurants and bars also were singled out for a weekend crackdown on COVID-19 enforcement in California, where hospitalizations for the highly contagious respiratory virus have jumped over 50% over the past 2 weeks. For the 8th straight day, Texas registered an all-time high in the number of people hospitalized with COVID-19 at any one moment, up more than 500 admissions from the day before to nearly 8,700 admissions. California, Texas and Florida are all among the 24 states reporting high infection rates, an alarming sign of a virus still spreading largely unchecked throughout much of the country. Meanwhile, California Governor nearly has ordered some temporary closures of the state capitol building in Sacramento for deep cleaning. He said that nearly 500,000 businesses were contacted by the state and warned that failing to enforce social distancing guidelines, including a statewide mandate to wear face coverings, could lead to a citation. Brazil has the world's second largest outbreak after the United States, and the virus has killed over 65,000 people in the country. While residents in Brazil's biggest city, Sao Paulo, are returning to restaurants, bars and shops as economic activity gradually reopens after lockdown. However, capacity has been reduced to ensure social distancing norms can be met. Patrons get their body temperatures checked before entering, and QR codes have replaced menus so as to reduce human-to-human contact. With Brazil still in the grips of the pandemic, authorities are urging caution. In Brasilia, a plane load of supplies from the UAE arrived on Monday in a show of solidarity. According to officials, 10 tons of medical aid such as face masks, gloves and COVID-19 tests were on a plane from UAE. Meanwhile, Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro said on Monday that he had undergone another test for the COVID-19 after local media reported he had symptoms associated with COVID-19 respiratory disease that it causes. Bolsonaro told supporters outside the presidential palace that he had visited the hospital and had been tested for the virus, adding that an exam had shown his lungs clean. Huge pile of smoke engulfed northwest Turkey's Gallipoli Peninsula as wildfire raged up in the region. Hundreds of firefighters and helicopters were pressed into the service to douse the fire. Maritime traffic in the Canal Strait were being suspended due to the blaze. Dwellers in surrounding areas were being evacuated and no casualty has been reported so far from Turkey. On to sports, Matic has signed a new contract with Manchester United to keep him at the club until June 2023. The 31-year-old Serbian midfielder joined United from Chelsea in 2017 and has made 114 appearances in all competitions for the Red Devils. Matic has also attracted interest from Italy and Major League Soccer in the United States, but always made it clear that his first choice was to stay at Old Trafford. Matic looked to have fallen out of favour this season, with manager Solskjaer preferring Scott McTominay and Fred for the defensive midfield berths, but the arrival of Bruno Fernandes and the return of fitness of Paul Pogba has altered the dynamics in the team. Matic is currently the first choice to anchor the midfield and has produced some of his best form of late. United, on a 16-game unbeaten run in all competitions, are 5th in the Premier League table, 2 points behind 4th placed Chelsea. Coronavirus is a major health threat. Our correspondent Kiran Bharadwaj spoke to Dr. Sunil M. Raheja about prevention measures for COVID-19 infections.
We are facing the challenge of COVID-19. How to keep ourselves safe from coronavirus? Let's understand from Dr. S.M. Raheja. Dr. Raheja, welcome. If we talk about high-risk group, who are the people who need to be extra cautious in regards to COVID-19?
Those who are 65 years and above, those who have got comorbid conditions like high blood pressure, heart disease, diabetes, obese people, those who have got asthma, COPD, chronic lung disease, chronic liver disease, chronic kidney disease, those who are taking immunosuppressants and steroids, patients of the blood cancer, pregnant women, small children. These high group persons should take extra precaution if they get infected. It has been seen that the severity of disease is much more in this group of persons.
What precautions should be taken to reduce the risk of COVID-19?
Go out of the home only if very necessary. Avoid social gathering and crowded places. If you have to go out of the home, maintain social distance. 2 गज दूरी है बहुत ज़रूरी. Avoid hugging, kissing or shaking hands. Say namaskar. Maintain good cough hygiene. Do not spit here and there. Keep your mouth and nose covered with mask or a piece of cloth. Maintain good hand hygiene. Always wash your hands whenever dirty. Avoid unnecessarily touching your mouth, nose and eyes, as this virus enters through these places only. Have good nutritious diet. Do regular exercise, yoga, pranayam. Have good sleep. Keep yourself relaxed and stress free. Avoid smoking.
So be alert, be safe and be cautious to reduce the risk of COVID infection. Kiran Bharadwaj, DD News.
Well, that's all we have time for in this edition of news. But remember to follow social distancing rules. Remember, we need to see a better tomorrow. Thanks for watching.